sort of joke about talking about monitoring visits. I said, how many visits do we have to do to, to satisfy the regulations? And I always used to say you only needed 3 visits, 1 before, 1 during, and 1 after, which is what the guideline actually said. But even in 1997, they brought in the concept of centralized monitoring and also with statistical sampling. So it's not new, it's been advocated since 1997 in ICH E6 guidelines. But obviously it became more pronounced with the release of the Oversight of Clinical Investigations, a risk-based approach to monitoring by the FDA. The FDA guidance has certainly driven us towards risk-based monitoring. And what was different about the FDA guidelines? They were saying that we should focus on critical data, the ones that are likely to affect the subject's safety or the quality of the data. And it's referenced in several recent scientific papers. It is now embedded in what we do. What the actual guidelines say is we have to protect subject and data integrity, which is GCP, but we have to focus on critical data. It encourages the use of a number of monitoring activities. Centralized monitoring is just one of the tools that we can use in risk-based monitoring. There are other methodologies. It also encourages greater reliance on centralized monitoring practices where appropriate. It's not always appropriate to have centralized monitoring. Of course, with e-technologies, it's much easier to have a central approach because we can get access to data much quicker and in real time. Whatever we do, we have to have a monitoring plan that tailors to the quality needs of each trial. Like I say, risk-based monitoring is not contrary to ICH, but we have to make sure that what we're doing is fit for purpose. Monitors could and cannot ever make a poor quality study into a good one by monitoring. We have to have a well-written protocol, well-designed CRFs. We have to identify our critical data. We have to have our monitoring plan focuses on that critical data. We have to have well-trained monitors, well-trained site staff, because if we're adopting a risk-based approach, the site staff will have to ensure that they do work to the correct standard. And as Jane said, one of the biggest sort of things with risk-based monitoring is effective communication. We need to make sure that everyone is talking to each other to know what is happening. So what do the guidelines say about critical data? What would be regarded as critical data? Well, this is what the FDA say. They say we have to ensure the subjects are eligible for the study. We have to have data that supports the endpoints of our study. Safety data, we have to know SAE data and any discontinuation data. We have to ensure we had informed consent, and we have to have also methods of randomization and blinding in our studies. What regarded as less critical data was age, concomitant medications, and concomitant illnesses. As a sort of ex-CRA of many years, and I also had a stint as a clinical trial auditor, it was alien to me to think that concomitant medications was less critical. Having spent 9 hours reading medical records, it was a little bit alien to me to suddenly realize that this was less critical data. And when I first started working with Jane, we were talking about what we do at monitoring visits, and one of the things she asked me was, well, what do you do at the pharmacy? And I used to go along to the pharmacy and basically count pills. And Jane said to me, why do you count pills? And I said, to make sure that the patients have taken the drugs as prescribed. And what would I have done if something was not quite right? I may have pointed that out to the investigator. But then Jane said to me, what difference does one patient not taking one pill in the study mean to the overall study data? And it suddenly hit me how many hours I had spent counting pills that would not have a huge impact on that study. And suddenly the thought of risk-based monitoring made a lot of sense to me. Although I hate being wrong, so I did point out that if I was going to a pharmacy to make sure that someone had taken their contraceptive pill, if they didn't take it, then there would have been an issue. But Jane pointed out to me that that would have been identified as a key risk indicator, and I would definitely have been monitoring that. So what do the guidelines say about processes? We have to ensure as well that we have informed consent, that we are measuring whatever we're measuring in our studies correctly, that we are reporting non-compliance or study deviations, and again we are keeping an eye on the drug safety and the data safety throughout the study.